An 11-inch tablet, 2.5K resolution, a massive 9,000 mAh battery, and a sub £200 euro or dollar price tag. Now, sounds all too good to be true. Well, today we're diving deep into this, the Redmi Pad 2, and asking that killer question whether Xiaomi has once again redefined what a budget tablet can be. But there's some other key specs as well. You actually get full stylus support on this particular tablet. You get a 3.5mm jack, you get 8 GB RAM, 256 GB storage, and 4G at the top end as well. So this can go anywhere and do anything you'd ever want. And lastly, an SD card slot, which gives you up to 2 TB of expansion memory. All of that is pretty sick, and it ticks all of those budget-friendly options. So the design profile of the Redmi Pad 2 is actually super reminiscent of the Xiaomi Pad 7 series, which is actually pretty sick because that's a really good tablet range. And then let's do a quick walk through the device itself. On the top here, you get your volume up and down key and your SD card / SIM slot. On the other side, you've got your dual speakers and your power button. The bottom here, you've got nothing. Along the shorter side of the frame, again, you get your 3.5mm jack, USB-C port, and dual speakers. So that in its totality is a quick overview. In terms of the build itself, it feels really, really good. Plastic, almost definitely, with like the classic metal frame, absolutely fine. And this color profile looks really good. And then the display itself, over 83% screen to body ratio. It's an LCD panel, and you get 600 nits of peak brightness. So it's not gonna have the punchy colors and the darker darks of an OLED panel, but it'll still perform very, very well in what you need it to do. So if you're watching back a lot of content that may be darker, it's not gonna give that super darkness, but it's still gonna do a very, very good job. Same for watching something like a normal TV show or a nature documentary or whatever content you may be consuming. You're gonna get super, super good balanced colors. In fact, at this price point, 600 nits of peak brightness, 83% screen to body ratio is actually pretty good. We do have video booster and color booster on as well to just give it that extra bit of vibrancy, just to add an extra layer of immersion, I guess is probably the way to sell it. It's the best to describe it, but the content in terms of consuming on this is actually pretty good. Now, just to quickly touch on one thing, 9,000 mAh battery. This is one of the downsides of this Redmi Pad 2, is it will only recharge at 18 watts. So although you do get a massive 9,000 mAh battery, it's probably going to be one that's going to take a good chunk of hours to recharge fully. In terms of the OS itself, HyperOS 2.0 out of box, Android 15. So sick. OS support wise, question mark, unaware. Spoke to Xiaomi directly, haven't had a response yet, but I'd guess around about 3 years of OS and security support, which is pretty good for this tablet at this price point. Then the operating system itself, let's quickly touch on the AI component. So it's integrated with Google Gemini fully, so you get Gemini Live and you still get Google Gemini to do in multimodal prompts, etc. All work super, super well. But if you wanted to create a contextual summary on anything that you have searched, for example, around this tablet, hypothetically, and you wanted to pull that information off and summarize it using AI, you can't, because it doesn't have any of the additional AI features that you sometimes do find in budget tablets. Things like the Honor Pad X9a has a lot of those AI features that are good for things like productivity, etc. Probably one of the downsides of this tablet. Part of me thinks good is not there because it keeps things simple, keeps the cost low. And the other part of me is thinking an extra 20 or 30 quid, and you could then have the AI features and this would be an even better buy. But to each their own. I guess the decision was made not to go down that route. But what other thing I would say is, in terms of OS itself, running HyperOS 2.0, it is super fluid, super fast. No issue at all here with any sort of slowdowns, judders, stutters, any crashing, no issues here at all. We've kept it fairly simple in how we've used it because it's sort of almost to simulate how it would be used by most people who buy a tablet, which is a budget one. So it's a lot of it is data consumption, things like browsing the web, checking articles online, maybe checking speed tests, etc. as well, and browsing content, things on Netflix and YouTube. So that's kind of mainly what I think this would be used for. But if you did want to have multiple operations, so a split window down the middle to have, say, YouTube playing on one side and then downloading something on another side or creating some content, then yes, that will work very well. Transitions between apps is very smooth. Opening and closing apps, depending what apps they are, again, very smooth. If you're opening a lot of games and closing them to move into a different app, you do sometimes get a bit of a judder, but it depends on the game. For example, Call of Duty Mobile for us, opening and closing it, no issue at all. And then the other component of it in terms of productivity and a bit of fun is it does have full stylus support. So the stylus itself is separate, costs around about £59, euros or dollars, and then that will give you the option to then create, so you can write, do drawings, etc., whatever you like. Pretty basic experience. The stylus I should say, is quite nice to hold in hands, feels solid, well built, but it is a pretty basic experience. But it's a really good addition to this tab. So think, for example, if you had a child or yourself who wanted to quickly capture some notes, you can do rather than typing, you could use a stylus. Or if you wanted to do some drawing as a pastime, you can do that as well. Or if you want to color in books, etc., which you can do online, again, it is available for you. So that's a really nice addition, as well as a case. Makes this a tablet you can get a complete 360 package for, which makes the Redmi Pad 2 again a really interesting budget buy. The performance component of the Redmi Pad 2 lies behind a Helio G100 chipset. Now this is probably the highlight downside, I guess, to an extent, because it's only a small minor upgrade to the G99 of a few years ago on the original Redmi Pad 1. So the upgrade isn't huge in terms of raw processing power. But before we touch on and give you a visual impact of what that looks like, let's quickly touch on those quad speakers, 2 at the front, 2 at the rear, and give you an idea as to how they perform. As you can see on those quad speakers, they actually perform reasonably well. You get decent quality at the mid-range. If you go super high with volume, you probably find that it does get a bit tinier and loses a bit of quality. But realistically, you're not going to be jammed near full high to watch any content because it's too loud. But then let's talk the other components of the performance. So on this particular spec, we have 8GB RAM, 256GB of storage, and a Helio G100. But when you're gaming online, it actually performs very well. So the max you're going to get here is very high FPS and then medium graphics. Now the reason this is because the processor can't actually handle anything beyond that. But if you are gaming at that level, it does perform very well. Super smooth frame rates, no real issues at all with sort of connectivity or gaming or response rates as well. Just perform very well. If you're looking to play games like Genshin Impact, for example, that's a no-go. Or Call of Duty Warzone, sorry, again, it's another no-go. It does not perform well at all against those games. It's more of a casual / slightly serious game, but in the lower end as well. So if you're playing your casual games, it'll work very well, run super smooth, no issue at all. So factor those things in when it comes to the actual tab itself. The other component is if you're running things like Wi-Fi test into the performance, we always do these because it's a good gauge as to connectivity. It runs very well. And we're talking a few rooms and a few good 20 to 30 meters away from the actual hub of the Wi-Fi router itself. So again, maintains a really good consistent connection, no issues there at all. Much like any tablet or any tech product out here in the world today, they're going to have plenty of highs and some lows. And to be fair, the lows on the Redmi Pad 2 are actually 2 things really. That's the slower charging at 18 watts and that G100 CPU being not that much of a big change compared to the G99 from a few years back. But then the highlights, you get this lovely 11-inch display which can be super vibrant. You get a 3.5mm jack, you get a large 9000 mAh battery, you get some really good speakers in the mid-range as well, and the display and the quality and the tablet as a whole is actually pretty good, especially if you factor in the entry point of this tablet is around about £130 US dollars, which is crazy value for money. And then on top of that, you also get a 4G option, which is what we're using here. So then that even creates a situation where you can use this pretty much anywhere. And that is something that not many tablets in this price category even offer. You also get stylus support. So we've been doing a lot of comparisons to the Honor Pad X9A, which kind of is sort of like the sub £200 sort of darling that we like a lot. This, I think, is probably going to be a better overall buy, especially as it has so much variance in what you can use it and how you can use it. So this is for sure 2025's best budget tablet, and that's the Redmi Pad 2. But let us know in the comment section your thoughts on this tab or the X9A, which you would buy, or is it a completely different tablet that we haven't even thought about that could be the better buy in this sub £200-ish category. Thank you so much for watching. Until the next one, as always, we out.